Hello once again YouTube, Chris the Nightbringer here bringing you some Kuat drive yards, and today we have a new ship, a pretty decently sized ship, right? This is clocking in at around 180 meters. Of course, when we get into the core, we'll take a look at the stats, but this is the Imperial Customs Corvette, or otherwise known as the Light Corvette. This is manufactured by Rendili Star Drive, and it's probably not well known. It is a Legends slash expanded universe ship. It does not appear in any canonized stuff from Star Wars or the Star Wars universe, so it's okay if you are unfamiliar with this, because it's not official in any way. However, you know how Star Wars universe is and how the fans are. They like to make up this type of stuff and build this stuff, and it's a pretty solid looking ship, so I decided to build it. So here we have it. It shares quite a number of design elements from other Star Wars ships, particularly the Star Destroyers, and of course this is an Imperial ship, so that makes sense. We've got the cut in the wedge on the sides, pretty reminiscent of the Venator class, and we also have down the middle a large gap in the wedge, pretty similar to the ancient Sith Star Destroyers, the Harrower class, as well as... no, I think that's it. I think that's it. Oh, no, the Gladiator class. I don't know how well known the Gladiator class is amongst regular Star Wars fans, but the Gladiator class also has this cut down the wedge in the center like this. So we're going to take a look at the outside real quick, and then we're going to move on to the inside. Basically, this ship is used as a Coast Guard-like vessel, where essentially it's kind of used to patrol borders, patrol regions in space without having to use the full force of a front-of-the-line ship like a Star Destroyer or an Imperial 1 or 2 Star Destroyer or any other capital ship, right? And it does things like search and rescue operations, border patrol, piracy prevention, and stuff like that. It does come with a complement, like a Stormtrooper complement or a platoon or whatever. I don't know how many people can fit on this thing officially, because it's always a random number that somebody makes up. But I decided to put a good amount of interior space on this thing so that it could support stuff like that. I tried to detail this thing as best as I could. These ships always come with a ton of greebles, which is just absolutely fantastic. I love detailing these ships. It's really fun. I should mention right now that a lot of this design is based off of a single person's work. I imported a model that was pretty much generally shaped like this, although I made modifications to the dimensions and proportions of some of this thing so that it looked a bit better. And I don't know where the model comes from, but I do know that a lot of the design elements and the design choices that I made come from one particular person. I don't know their real name, but they have a website called Fractal Sponge. I highly suggest you go check it out if you are interested in Star Wars 3D models. None of them, as far as I can tell, are actually available for download, but my god, they are the most beautiful Star Wars models that I've ever seen. Seriously, some of the most detailed looking, impressive stuff, and it covers not only canonized ships, but expanded universe and legend ships as well. So this was one of the ships that particular person modeled, and I decided to base a lot of the design and excuse me, the details of this ship based off that person's work. So I'd highly suggest you go check that out. That is Fractal Sponge, the website or something. I don't know. Go Google that. So we're going to go inside this thing. We're going to take a peek around. We got two buttons here. One of them is for the large boarding ramp that is situated right here. And then the other one is for this hangar bay, cargo bay entrance. It's not really a hangar. We can put our gravity on. These two things, these two buttons, activate the ramp and close the doors, open the doors. This entire room is filled with cargo blocks, but of course you can't see them because they're not filled with anything. And it's pretty straightforward, right? There's nothing special going on in here. I might detail the ceiling, but I'm not sure how I want to do that yet. So we'll see. And you will notice this is the beginning of a major attempt at trying to detail the interior of Star Destroyer or Imperial ships and stuff in general. With the Rebels Star Wars TV show, right, the cartoon, there's a lot of reference material for the interior of these types of ships, and it's super exciting because I get to use that as inspiration for how the interior of Star Wars ships should look like, at least the Imperial stuff, and that's what I'm focusing on right now. Totally focusing on the Imperial stuff. Of course, you should have garnered that when you saw my super huge Star Destroyer build that I started working on in the first episode. So, we're going to start all the way over here. This is the airlock in the front of the ship. This is on the very end. And you can dock to this, although I am not using a USD because of the design of the locks and the airlocks on this thing. A USD doesn't exactly work. I might change it. We'll see. But for the moment, it is not USD compatible. I mean... No, yes, I'm right. It's not USD compatible. But I will try and make the ships compatible with each other. So you can close this... Well, close it that way, I guess. There's another button here to open that up. And this is just like an airlock tube. It's really kind of plain. But I'm not really sure there's any major way I can improve the aesthetics of that. There's another airlock right here. And this is on the interior of the wedge shape. In the trench or the gap in the hull. So there's another airlock here for docking. And you can see, across there, you can see the way I have the dock set up. So basically it's just going to be a docking block underneath the doorway for when you want to dock to this thing. And I'll see how well I can accommodate that on other ships. I might have to switch to USD just because of how versatile and useful USD is. We'll see. I'm not entirely sure. Excuse me. So this room is the Armory. We have, you know, some shelving here. And we have some weapon racks. I guess this is a weapon rack. It's as close as you can get to like an actual shelf where you would store weapons and stuff. Rifles and the like. You would find like armor here and, you know, stormtrooper helmets and stuff like that here. A lot of this is based off of the Star Wars Battlefront game. There is a Death Star level in the latest Star Wars Battlefront game, and it features a lot of, you know, interior rooms and stuff from Star Wars Battlefront, the Death Star. Not from Star Wars Battlefront, but from the Death Star. I'm like trying to think and talk at the same time. I'm sorry. So, a lot of that inspiration comes from there as well. So here we have one of the Stormtrooper barracks, or Stormtrooper crew quarters. I guess that's not really crew quarters, but it's their quarters for the onboard squadron, platoons, whatever you want to call it, of the Stormtroopers that are on this ship. There's another one on the other side. Right here is a turret access hallway. So if you come over here, of course, these things have a full block collision mesh, but eventually they will be quarter slab collision mesh, and that means you'll be able to walk right up into this thing, open the door, and climb into the turret. It's right above that doorway there. So we'll come back down here. We'll walk this way. We've got a refresher, a pretty large refresher, and of course this is because there's an entire platoon or whatever of stormtroopers on this ship, and of course they need to be taken care of hygienically, I guess. So there's that, and of course we have a galley for them as well. So this is like a full kitchen plus eating area. You get your food served here, and then back here is where like a few cooks could be. Big giant fridge and freezer. You got a stove, got a sink. And you put the food out over here and they can pick it up. So I thought that was pretty sweet. Pretty obvious thing to put on a ship. Gotta have a place to eat, right? Back here is, of course, the hangar. And we'll get into that room in a sec. Right here is a sort of engineering maintenance area. There's one of these on either side of the ship as well. This direction we have another turret access point. That goes all the way into the wing of the ship, where another turret lies on top of the hull. And right here, we have a way of getting into the escape pods. Also, if you just heard somebody sneeze, I apologize. That was somebody else in my house sneezing. I don't think you heard it, but I don't know, and I don't want you to think that I have some random sneezer in my house. So, here we have weapons control room. So we have the cannon computer here, the overdrive effect system here, and I don't think we have anything else connected to the cannon computer. Over here we have a missile system. We'll be taking a look at the stats of the ship, as well as the performance and capabilities of the ship when I get to the core, which is in the bridge. But that is the weapons control room. This hallway leads back into the one we were just in. And we enter this hallway and we have an elevator which will take us up. It's already here. We'll check out that room in a minute. Over on the other side we have sensor control suite. So this is where the ship's sensors are monitored from. We have a few consoles here. I really wish these things came in different colors. I'm super tempted to make my own textures for this thing because Star Wars has a very specific aesthetic, and unfortunately Starmade does not match the aesthetic of Star Wars consoles and computers and stuff. It comes close in some cases, but in other cases it doesn't really come close at all. For the most part, Star Wars consoles aren't this colorful. They're more black with colored lines on them and stuff. So I kind of wish that was the thing in Starmade. I hope that in the future we get multiple colors for these consoles, because red certainly suits the Imperial Star Destroyers and the Imperial ships much better than blue. But regardless, it still looks good, I think, in my opinion. Here is the other side to that maintenance area. That's the other hangar, pretty much the same. And moving down here, we have a medical bay. So this is a pretty nice medical bay. It's got, 5 beds, plus a desk for the doctor or surgeon or whoever, and then this is the proper operating room right there. Coming back this way, another refresher, and over here another turret access point, another onboard stormtrooper quarters, and then right here is just like a little computer room. I don't really know what this would be, but when I get to the larger Star Wars ships, I'm gonna have to fill my Star Destroyers and all that stuff with rooms like this where basically nothing's going on. There's no clear indication as to what this room is all about, but, you know, maybe it's shield control, and this is where shield systems are monitored or something. I don't know. But, you know, that's the reality of Starmade. It's not like a 100% perfect game with super legit physics and systems. So we're going to make our way back to the elevator. We're going to try and get through this quick because I'm already like 11 minutes into this video. So let's hurry this up. We've got like 4 more decks to go through, which is kind of nuts. So we're going to go up. And you can see the other decks in this elevator. It's all open. I don't really know if I can close this. On larger builds, I will certainly close the elevator, but on this build, it's going to have to stay open. We're going to go this way. Right here is environmental control. So this is the environmental control room. I'm really satisfied with rooms like this. Oh! I forgot to show you the one room on the bottom. Okay. We'll go back. I forgot to show you the detention center and the brig, right? So it's right across from here. This is the detention center. I tried modeling this off of 2 different things. Obviously the actual Death Star detention center, and the prison cells that you can find on smaller ships. So these are prison cells on the ship for, you know, the people that they capture, of course. And then, of course, we got these, like, console things that you find in Star Wars. Star Destroyer ships and stuff like that, that people are always at. They're just used as a set piece, basically. I don't really think they're actually useful in any way. So many consoles in the Star Wars universe. Anyway, continuing. Back into the room like this. This type of design, room design, I guess, is really awesome, I think. I think I did a really good job pulling off the look of this type of room. You don't really see these types of rooms in the actual Star Wars movies, but in the video games and in, you know, other materials from Star Wars, you definitely see some cool engineering rooms like that. So this is the atmosphere controls. Down the center hallway we have, this is the crew galley, and then across from that, this is the officer's galley. So there's there's fewer chairs in here, fewer sitting areas, but it's pretty much the same thing, but it's only for officers. And then what's right here? We have an officer's quarter here, and another officer's quarter here. Right here, through this big door, we have the droid maintenance room. So this is where the astromech droids would be. They'd be stored on these shelves. Maybe I might have to change the size of the shelf. I don't think an astromech could actually fit there. And I couldn't really model this properly, but right here we have a door that the astromech gets sucked into, and it allows them to exit the ship, start crawling around on the surface, and start performing repairs on the external areas of the ship. Also right here we have another airlock on the very innermost section of this gap in the wedge structure of the hull. So there's that. Moving on along this corridor. God, it's probably the most detailed interior I've ever done, so it's actually kind of difficult to get a grasp on where things are. You kind of forget. So here is a conference room, just, you know, for meetings between the officers and maybe high-ranking captains of the stormtrooper platoons and whatnot. Nothing too incredible there. We have a bit of storage space down here, and that's nothing. And there's weird graphical glitches going on. Not sure what that's all about. Here is an actual crew quarters. Pretty much the same as what we've seen before with the stormtrooper quarters. Here is another turret access point that will be the last one that we see. And then right here is another crew quarter. And right here is another crew quarter. The Star Wars ships have a lot of crew quarters. Apparently this thing is designed to have 52 some odd crew members on board. An absolutely ridiculous amount, but apparently that's normal. Back here, pretty much the same stuff. Right here is a refresher for the crew. And that's it for this deck. Everything else is the same. It's just mirrored on both sides, I think. So we're going to head up another deck. And here we are. So immediately behind us we have engineering. So this is proper engineering. Like, this is where you monitor the jump drives. This is where you monitor the engines, possibly shield systems. We have an overdrive system installed on the ship as well. So this is where that is located. Trying to space these things out so that not everything is located in one little spot. And then in front of this we have like little storage rooms on the side that don't really mean much. There's a few consoles in there. And then right here we have the tractor beam control. Of course, these types of ships are known for having tractor beams, and if they're trying to fight piracy and things like that, then it's absolutely a must that they have some sort of tractor beam on the ship. So we have a pull effect and a stop effect attached to a beam. Yeah, it's a beam. The cannon system is there to make the beam continuously fire with no reload time, or very little reload time. We're moving on up. 2 decks left. So right here is the captain's deck. This is pretty much reserved exclusively for the captain. They've got a much nicer room. It's much more roomy. It's still very Spartan, and I think that's important on an Imperial vessel because, of course, they're, I think, boring and Spartan. But that's okay. They're okay with that, I think. They also have their own bathroom, which is, like, super privileged, I think. And their own kitchen, their own little kitchenette, right? And a place to lounge about. So I think they're pretty privileged being the captains of a ship like this, right? We come over here, and we've got escape pods. Now these are 2 escape pods located on the top of the ship. If I can squeeze under them, you should be able to squeeze under them if you try. Yeah, there we go. So you can squeeze under them. If you press this, that will open up the grating on the top of the ship that prevents you from leaving. However, you can also activate it by pressing this button here, which will initiate the launch sequence for the escape pod, right? Also, this activator button right here will reset the escape pod rail block so that it can dock again. Otherwise, it's just going to immediately launch back into space if you try and dock the escape pod to its little dock. So if we press this button and then we jump into the escape pod, we will be launched into space after 3 seconds, approximately. And if I look down, we're just going to jump out of this thing and go back inside so that I can show you this thing closing. So this right here, this grate opens up when you initiate the sequence, and if you want to close it, you can press that button and it will close it. It will seal it all up. That's just detail that I wanted to keep on the build, and that's why that's there. And if you want to reset the rails, of course, press this, and now that's sideways so that it won't launch the escape pod back into the air. 1 person per escape pod. There are 4 escape pods. There are 2 on the very lowest deck that you can access from that engineering section, and I just realized there is no gravity module in here. That is something I will have to fix. Luckily, there should be one right there. So, on to the last deck, and that is the bridge, where we will be able to get into the core of the ship. The bridge is pretty plain. There's not a lot of room up here for the bridge in the first place, so that's why it's so small, but we have 2 pilots, we have technical stations in the back so that other people can be up here, and then of course the captain would probably be standing here overlooking all these operations. So we get into this block here, this core block, and we have access to the ship. Now real quick, take a look at the stats. If that's the type of thing you care about, I'll make them really big so you can see all of that information. Pause the video to take a look. And so now that we are in the core, we can cycle through the cameras. We've got 1 on either side. This one's in the front of the bridge, this one's slightly lower, and then Well, we have one on this side, I guess. We have one even lower, although that door is in the way, so I might get rid of this one. The fact that that door is in the way suddenly makes me want to get rid of this one. I guess I didn't see that when I first put this camera down. And then we also have ones in the far front, right next to the doors there. So, there's that. We have a cannon computer, which fires 12 shots. All 12 of those shots are equally powerful. They're all equal in strength to each other, and they are also positioned directly underneath these turrets. Now, I think I explained this in my last video, but I'm essentially trying to convey more stronger weaponry without using turrets. Of course, I'm still going to have turrets on the build. These are turbo laser turrets, but in order for the ship to actually output decent firepower, I'm putting larger, hard-mounted weapon systems underneath the turrets so that it almost looks like the ship has got a volley of turret fire coming from it. So, from here, if I zoom out, you'll see that those shots originate from basically right below those turrets. And if you didn't know, there's one turret here, one turret here, and one turret here on both sides. It only has 6 turbo lasers. Now, I also decided to put a missile system on the ship. So we've got that, and I think I'm actually going to Customs Corvette. I'm going to load in another ship. It has about 1 million shields, so you'll be able to see just how much damage these weapon systems do. Why is that not doing any damage? What in earth? It's not doing any damage, it says. Oh, there it goes. Now it's at 86%, 78%. 75. So it does about 3% damage to 1 million shields each volley. The missiles, they do a lot more, but they are also on a longer cooldown. But those are some pretty hefty missiles if they're taking down the shields on that thing. Of course, I'm not a big PvPer. I don't know how well my systems are in comparison to other people's, but I'd like to think that I did it pretty decently, okay? I'm pretty average, pretty decent, so we'll see. What else? From the cockpit, you of course can use the, which one is this? Pull effect, so that will pull ships close. It doesn't really work on similarly sized vessels. It kind of works, or is intended for smaller ships. Of course, you can see that I am pulling that ship closer towards me. And then we also have the stop effect, so that you can stop ships from moving away. We also have overdrive, and I think that is at full 50% effect efficiency as indicated in the upper right. This thing has a 2.5 thrust-to-mass ratio as well, which I am pretty pleased with. Of course, since it's a Corvette, I thought that was pretty fitting. The other Corvette that is well known in Star Wars' universe is the Tantive V4, and that is a fast blockade runner type of ship. So I figured it was fitting that this ship also have some speed to it. Lastly, we have the scanner computer and the jump drive computer. This jump drive is the main jump drive computer. There is a backup jump drive on this ship as well, and of course that is because that is what is indicated from the Star Wars Wikipedia page. The ship has a backup jump drive. This is much weaker and much slower charging than the other one, but it's there nonetheless. I also have engines on this thing, which glow beautifully when you start thrusting. I absolutely love the effect of the thruster plumes on these ships. Absolutely marvelous. We have landing gear. As you can see there's 4 landing gear. Of course, I don't advise you to actually land this thing on a planet. That would just be a disaster, I think, but they are there nonetheless. We have port ramp, port cargo bay door, and the starboard ramp, or starboard cargo bay door, and starboard ramp. There we go. So that's it. That's everything you can do with this ship. That's the entire interior, and that is the whole ship in a nutshell. So, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed it. You can, of course, get this thing from the community content section on the Starmade doc by clicking the link down below in the description. And, hell yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with this. I am really satisfied with the interior detailing. It took the most amount of time for sure, but I think it was well worth it, and it is paving the way for perhaps a modular system that I'll be able to use for the Imperial interior aesthetic. which will allow me to quickly build these types of interiors on other ships. Of course, from here on out, it gets bigger as we go, and I think the next major Star Wars ship that I will be working on, other than the other projects I've already started, is the Archidans class cruiser, which is a cruiser that shows up prominently in Star Wars The Clone Wars TV series as well as Rebels. It is pretty much the only cruiser, the only small Imperial ship that the Rebels ever deal with. There's like always an Imperial light cruiser that they deal with, and that is the next ship I will be building. So we'll be taking a look at that eventually when I get some of the work done on that, but for now, please enjoy this, leave your comments and feedback down below, let me know what you think, and I will see you all next time.